most MSPs are more worried about making every decision. In other words, they want to be king. The funny part is they're a king of a very, very small kingdom.
Yep.
Versus being rich. Think about this for a minute. If you knew for a fact that you could grow 3 times faster just by letting somebody else do it, how many people would say, yes, you'll be rich or king? King is ego.
Do you want to be rich or do you want to be king? That's the $1 million question every MSP with less than $5 million should be asking themselves. Folks, it is a huge privilege to introduce the next guest on my show, Tim Conkle, founder of the 20s, to talk about the fundamental angst that every MSP owner wrestles with. Nothing in this podcast can be missed. I left it totally uncut because it was so much fun. Enjoy. But first, before we go any further, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. My name is Madhur Duggar. I work in the IT and software M&A space, and this is my podcast series, M&A Insights. If you are interested in having a conversation around the strategic direction of your firm, are looking to grow your book and want some marketing and business development help, or are an investor looking to make an acquisition in the space, write to me at podcastwithmadhur, that's MADHUR, @gmail.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn.
The number one problem most MSPs have is making the phone ring, growing. Well, I had an MSP and I had my phone ringing, so other people wanted to hear me talk about it. So you could spend $15,000, spend a day and a half with me, and I would teach you all this stuff and I'd make your phone ring. And I did this for a couple of years, made a lot of money. But I found this out. I was at a conference in LA, and a guy come up to me, and I don't remember names a lot, but I remember faces. I've got a photographic memory for faces, or things I've seen. Mm-hmm. And a guy walks up to me, and I knew immediately he'd been in my class, and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's great, man. I've gone from like 800,000 in revenue to 3.5 million in like 12 to 18 months." And I said, "Man, that's incredible." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm not making any more money."
Okay.
And I was like, "Wow." And so I asked him if I could visit his office, and of course he said yes. So I went to his office, and we opened the door, and there's all these people in here, and I'm like, "Oh my God, who are all these people?" He goes, "Well, we grew. We had to hire people." And then I looked up on the wall, and he was using an outsourced help desk. So we had all of these people. So labor had outrun him. So I knew that I could teach people how to make their phone ring, but then they would still fail because scale. They know how to hire people. They didn't know how to do all these things. And so that got my mind to thinking. Mm-hmm. I was at a conference in Florida, and a guy came to me, and he had gone to class, and I asked him how he's doing. He's, "Are your appointments good?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. Like 8 months, I've been on 44 appointments." Contrast this, before he came to the class, he went on maybe one a quarter. So he'd done it. And I'm like, "Dude, that's incredible."
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
I said, "You're working the plan exactly the way I told you, and it's working." And he goes, "Yeah, but I haven't sold any."
Okay.
44 appointments for people.
And not a single sale.
That opened up and said, "We need IT support." He provides IT support, but he couldn't close a single one. So I knew then that we had a sales problem. Mm-hmm. So the 20 got birthed right there. Mm-hmm. And the 3-legged stool was born. The only 3 things that any MSP has to perfect to have a great company is lead gen. You got to make your phone ring. Sales. You got to be able to differentiate yourself and close sales. And the third is you have to be able to scale. Mm-hmm. First 2 were easy. I already knew how to make the phone ring, and I already knew how to sell. So I thought, I'm just going to teach them to pitch the way I do and to sell the way I do and all that stuff. And that was easy, but scale, I was like, okay, so how do I get this scale thing? Because if you take 10 MSPs, put them in a room, all 10 do the same things. They all have a PSA and RMN, which means they all do it separately with no upside. What if those 10 came together and said, let's do this together? I just took 90% of the work off of just 2 tools that we use. And then I just took it all the way to the end of that. And then when I was formulating this on a whiteboard, I realized that if I do this, all these companies are going to look the same. So we will get a little bonus out of this called a national footprint, where all of these people will work together. They do things exactly the same way. They don't deviate. Which means if I'm in Dallas and a company comes to me and says, hey, we've got an office in Dallas, New York, and blah, blah, blah. We could say we have one footprint to take care of you. And then I thought to myself, wow. And this was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be wild for us all to become one company? And that's kind of how the 20 was birthed. It was out of it was, and I think in life, if you look at me and things I do in life, it's typically out of necessity. I see something that's broken, and it's typically my thought process or how I operate to try to fix it.
Yeah, and you've talked at the vision and also several times about things that you do really well and things you've put together a team to help you with, right? You had this vision because you saw an issue and you said, this is how the equilibrium sort of needs to work out in this space. That was your vision. But the vision comes with a lot of executional detail that has to be put together. Talk to us a little bit about what that team is, what does it do for you, and how does it touch the MSPs who become your members and partners?
So hardest thing we've ever built my entire life is a help desk. Because obviously, if you have 10 MSPs, why would you create 10 help desks? Create one, let's all use it. We'll make it not a third party. You have to be a member in order to use any of this. Mm-hmm. And so I realized, like most entrepreneurs, you try to elevate people that are in your circle. I already had an MSP, so I already had people, I already had some process. But I talk about magic. If you put people in their magic, they'll always perform great tricks. If they're not in their magic, it'll always just be an illusion. And the bad thing about illusions is once you know the illusion, it's no longer worth anything. It's kind of like the trick too. But right seats are incredibly. If it took me 10 years before I started buying companies because they had their own people. At about the 10-year mark, really had the right leaders, had to go outside the company. So our operator, we got from $1 billion company. Why? Because in my dream, I saw us being $1 billion company. So you have to prepare. You can't get to the same place at 10 million that's 100. It's different leaders, different.
Absolutely.
And it's the thing about MSPs that make MSPs hard. You've got a guy that has worked for a company as an engineer. He brings an engineering mind into a company, which means I'm going to create great product. I'm going to service. Man, I'm going to be the best service industry in the world. Problem is nobody knows.
Yep.
Why? Because he doesn't market. He's an introvert. He doesn't talk to people. Right people, if you look, most MSPs that are massively successful have a sales-minded leader. They just do. Why? Yeah. Because where an engineer will spend all of his breathing time trying to fix something just to be 0.5% better, 0.25% better, a sales guy just sells it and says, hey, we'll sell it and then figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so engineers never get beyond that in the sense of they spend all their time looking at tools and trying to figure that out, where that's not how you grow a business. That's just one little bitty aspect. And then they never surround themselves with the right people. You have to surround yourself with the right people. And they have to believe your dream. So if you haven't told your dream to the people that work for you, you're doing a great disservice to the company, because how do they know where you're going?
Yeah. You have made, since the origination of the 20s, how many acquisitions now? 30, 35 acquisitions. Is that right, Tim?
We did 35 acquisitions in 23 months.
Oh my goodness. And just the integration of all of that. You must be thinking about what are the types of profiles that fit well with your company to make these integrations happen, right? Do you feel that profile is going to get broader over time as you build sort of more clusters of tech stacks and things that allow people to get integrated better? Or do you feel there's a certain kind of style, company that fits, and then there are others that won't fit?
Any MSP fits.
Yeah.
That's what the 20 does. The 20 takes an MSP that's just out in the wild, has them join the group, and then we all standardize and do things exactly the same. So think about that for a minute. If you're and all of us live in a single PSA and RMM, which means integration, 80% of it's been done before we ever buy them. So now it boils down to culture, growth. Do they have the right mindset from a leadership perspective? You ask a completely different set of questions that you typically would for someone you're going to acquire. It's why we only acquire members. Why? Because think about when a typical PE firm buys MSP. First thing they want to buy is a platform. That's in the real sense, that's just a big MSP.
Yeah.
To me, there's not a platform that's been bought yet. I think the 20 is the first platform. I'll explain this. So a PE firm buys an IT company. Culture's different, tool set's different, everything. So they get the platform, then they start bolting on these to the side. They never get rid of technical debt. Technical debt being disparate systems, disparate ways of doing business. They barely collaborate, these different pieces. We have a culture of collaboration from the beginning because they came in as small companies, and collaboration is what got them to the next level. So, like I say, 80% of transition is done before we ever buy a company, which means I can buy a company and within 60 days, everything's done. 60 days or less. We bought 6 companies the first month we did it. 60 days or less, all 6 were completely integrated into the system and working as a single company. It's because of how the 20 was built in the membership. We all walk the same path. So it's easy. Think about this for a minute. If you've got a small company that doesn't have enough people, he signs a decent sized client and doesn't have enough people to onboard him. When you can reach into the group and say, hey, I need help onboarding, and you do no training, that's what you have to have. They can literally step out of their company into another, and process standards and all that are so similar that you don't know that it's a different company, except by brand. And that's one thing we figured out relatively quick was disparate brands confuse companies that have multi-locations. You're saying you're one company, but why do you have all these different brands? So some P firms out there doing it to where they buy a company, hey, keep your brand, keep running your company, blah, 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 blah. Think about the downside of that. There's no upside synergy. In other words, if I buy 2 companies, tell them to keep their own brand, tell them to run their own thing, why would one help the other? They're still competing. When you bring them all together and it's just, we're going to help each other. And when you sell a deal or we sell a deal, it doesn't matter. All boats rise together. True collaboration. When everybody benefits from every single thing that happens in the company. If an account manager keeps a client, we all benefit. If a salesman sells a client, we all benefit. If a sales guy gets a new member to join the group, we all benefit. It's 100% goal alignment across all the people. That's what you have to build.
That's fantastic. It was actually going to be my next question, which was, how does collaboration work across so many different MSPs, in your shop, which I think you just addressed. There were 2 other things that really resonated with me when I attended your conference, when I spoke with the members who were with you. One of them was they really appreciated the sort of MSP peer group experience that they got when they were as members, because they got to talk to each other and experience that. And then the other one that they really appreciated was the national platform that it gives them to be able to help out any of their clients, no matter where they're located, by reaching out to other member firms. I think this is fantastic. I get it, but tell the listeners a little bit about that.
So if you look across the group, there's two pieces really to the group: the MSP that everybody rolls up into when they're ready, and the group. The group itself collaborates because it's a lot of small companies. Think about this for a minute. I love the idea of labor consumption. So why would take the concept of 10 MSPs sitting in a room again? Why would all 10 get an Azure professional when each one would probably, if they hired one, use him between 10 and 20%? It's high labor. So now you've got this high labor guy moving computers from one side of a building to another, which irritates him because wrong seat, right? You've got a really high performing individual. So think about when you all decide, okay, what we'll do is if I need an Azure guy and I don't have one, I'll reach into the group and ask. We all have negotiated rates for labor. And so they can reach in. Now, think what I'm doing. I'm taking dead labor on a P&L and creating this platform to where you don't have to pay for a guy's dead time on your P&L. In fact, he can make you money on your P&L. And so once all these little pieces started falling together, it's no longer about whether I have 20 people in my company or 30 people, because we all see ourselves as one big thing. So you can take a 5-man IT company, join the group, and I tell them the first thing you have to do is change. You have to change the way you think. You're no longer a 5-person company. You're part of a national footprint of over 1,200 employees that I can draw from anytime I need it. All of a sudden, we're a lot deeper knowledge-wise than most companies. We have more footprint than most. I don't know of a P-owned MSP right now that has our footprint. We probably have the biggest footprint that exists right now. And why is it? Because I convinced a lot of people that you're better together than separate. And if you'll help each other, it's better than being separated. It's kind of like, the old biblical principle, house divided against itself will surely fall. As long as small MSPs are divided, they're going to fall. Bring them together, strong revenue, strong knowledge, everything. So it just made sense for everybody to collaborate. There's absolutely no downside to collaboration when everyone knows the vision. Where are we all going?
Yeah.
And it's important that they know it. Big reason why we call our conference Vision.
Yep. That's a good one. Yeah. So you've done 35, you've done them in a very short period of time. And the strategy is to continue to do more of this, I'm assuming. Do you get to the point where you feel like this is going to become too large for you to actually manage? I mean, there is something scary about being successful like that, right? How do you scale this and continuously maintain cohesiveness through this whole thing?
I think you go back to the beginning when we talked about right people, right seats. It scares the hell out of me because I'm a visionary. I'm really just a visionary. That is my magic. I'm a visionary. I'm not a doer. I'm a dreamer. But I do have the ability to bring people together and all of that. I think here's a great segue. You have to ask yourself a simple question. Do you want to be rich or do you want to be a king? I want to be rich. So I don't have to be in charge. I don't have to run it forever. I don't have to be in the CEO seat forever. We're getting to the place now where I honestly believe a classically trained CEO would be better than I am. Now, you can't dream better than I can. So as we grow, you have to grow the people. Otherwise, you're right. It gets so big that the left hand don't know what the right hand's doing.
Right.
Blah blah blah. Right. It goes back to the thing, right? What 3 things do you have to know? I don't care what kind of company you are. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what you're selling. It's a 3-legged stool. Lead gen, sales, and scale. You always. So the real question you're asking is, how are you going to scale bigger than Tim Conkle?
Yep.
It's already bigger than Tim Conkle.
Right. Right.
Now we won't stop. Now think about it. I said that I don't think a platform has been sold in this space. To me, a platform is, I've got acquisition targets that I line up. They come all the way across, and the whole thing is kind of like AAA baseball and pro ball, right? You're training up your stuff.
Right.
And we've done that. A platform that's the whole life cycle of acquiring companies, integrating those companies, and becoming a bigger company. Where think in terms of the other, they're literally out there sending thousands of emails just looking for somebody to buy. I'm not looking for, I'm not sending thousands of emails looking for people to buy. I already have a ready-made, and it's the most, and I could go into economics, the mathematics of it. It is amazing what you can do. Just put a dollar sign in front of numbers. This is probably the most profitable thing I've ever been a part of, or even remotely been close to. A machine. My dad would say it this way. When I was a kid, if I asked for money, I only did this one time in my entire life. And my dad never just handed us money. There was always a task. And I'll never forget. He told me, he said, Tim, go out in the backyard, look at all the trees and see if there's any money on any of them. Of course, as a little kid, I run back in. No, Dad, there's no money. He goes, well, I can't help you picking off a tree. And he told me the theory of money doesn't grow on trees. Money's earned. My dad's 86 now. I was telling him about the 20 and kind of all this stuff. And he goes, wow, you found the tree. Because the reality is when the snowball gets big enough, you can't stop it. Mm-hmm. This model and this way of doing business and this way of creating wealth, not only for myself, but all the members that roll up with me, is an incredible thing. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't dreamed it getting so big that it couldn't be handled. So
yeah,
but I do think you have to continually up your talent. Mm-hmm. And that means you have to stop. My uncle would say it this way: don't let your money get mad. In other words, don't hire a guy for $100,000 when you know he can't do the job. He just falls in your
budget. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hire the guy that can literally perform it at a level that not only does he pay for himself, but he creates the magic, right?
Yep.
And that's the magic of being in the right seat. You let someone be what they're naturally prone to like to do, and put them in that seat, and they'll outperform anybody you'll ever put in that seat that's just there for money.
And you know what? This is a great point, because I think that there are many MSPs out there who understand and believe what you just said. They would like to hire the best talent to do their best sales job, but they are probably budget constrained in some way or the other, and if they're not. But if they become a member of the 20s, then they get to leverage all of that great talent as part of the overall organization.
Yeah. They literally get access to people that they couldn't talk to.
Yes.
I mean, and you get a recipe. I mean, the reality is this is what kills me about this industry. Most MSPs follow people that have never built an MSP.
And what is the point of that? Yeah.
And my dad always taught me, he said, son, you want to be great? You find somebody that you want to look like. Look at their company and say, I want to look like that. Mm-hmm. And then dream, because you'll outdo what they've done. They're just going to give you a recipe to a place. And so really what the 20 does is it takes a mediocre MSP. And I'm just going to say it the real way, a mediocre MSP that can't compete with your large MSPs. And it fundamentally changes them. gives them all the pieces. If you can't be successful as a member of the 20, you can't be successful, period.
In the vision, and I think in this podcast as well, you mentioned this fundamental choice that every MSP founder has: cash or king, right? Tell us what this is for our listeners, that this sort of like pull and push between being cash or king, and what is it that the MSP founder needs to decide when it comes to these two choices?
So do you want to be rich or a king? Was a Harvard Business Review of a book that I read. And then I applied it to my own thought process. And the premise being, every man comes to a place where he's over his skis.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to ask yourself this simple question: am I the right person in the right seat? Now, a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to leave the company I'm at. I'm going to start my own company because I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I don't want a boss. Well, you went from having one boss to however many customers you have. Trust me.
100%.
It's harder.
Yep.
So if the idea is I just want to go out there and create my own thing because I don't want to have a boss, your company's never going to be anything. It's the wrong foundation to build it on. Everyone that starts a company should have in their mind, I'm going to create wealth, not only for myself, but maybe even elongate that out to my family. Mm-hmm. That's why you build companies. Mm-hmm. And it gives you, that's the American dream. It gives you all the pieces. Most MSPs are more worried about making every decision. In other words, they want to be king. The funny part is they're a king of a very, 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 very small kingdom.
Yep.
Versus being rich. Think about this for a minute. If you knew for a fact that you could grow 3 times faster just by letting somebody else do it, how many people would say yes? Do you want to be rich or king? King is ego. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's an ego. Nobody's telling me what to do. Well, you're exactly right. And you're never going to make a lot of money either. Because, and the other piece is, I think, take MSPs in general, they're mostly engineers. They don't even have the pieces to make the decision almost. Mm-hmm.
True.
But if you're going to be rich, and I teach this across the whole group, ego is the most expensive thing that you have. Why? Because it never lets you rest. Ego means I see somebody with a better car, I go after a better car. Ego means I see somebody with a better house, I go after a better house. Ego means somebody that makes more money, and that becomes and you lose track of really the important shit at the bottom, at the base of everything. And that is, to be rich, you have to surround yourself with the right people. It goes back to the same thing that I said. Most MSPs are engineers, and they only follow the technical side of their company. And they're always constantly griping about, well, I don't like this PSA, or I don't like this RMM, or who cares? Mm-hmm. None of those vendors create money for you. They're a vendor. They cost you. So if you're not getting ROI for that tool, you shouldn't be thinking about it, except it performs a function. And that's where most MSPs fail. They are so tied up in the function of their product and making it 0.5% better that they never get to the place that they lead gen. They're always scaling at a disadvantage.
You know, you said something so interesting, which was they oftentimes took on this role because they wanted independence to do their cool things that they love to do, but they ended up in a spot where actually independence was the one thing they didn't really have, because now they have, if they're successful, they're going to have so many clients, and if that's going to take away their independence. And if they're not successful, then they are the king of a very, very, very small kingdom. So either way, you're not going to have independence that's worth anything. And I think that's really fundamental for so many founders to be able to parse, right? Do you think there are signs and signals for when an MSP founder should say, this is it. This is as far as I can take this by being king. I really need to hand the reins over to somebody else and cash out.
Of course. When is that time? It's when you start your company and you start figuring out real quick, I'm an engineer, I can't sell. People always ask me, who do you hire? Who is the first hire that you hire in MSPs? And I said, it depends on who the owner is. If the owner is sales-minded, guess what you hire first? Technical.
Yep.
Because if I free up his time from doing technical work, he can sell more. Transverse that, if he's sales, or if he's technical, or if he's sales, he hires technical. If he's technical, I'm getting my own mind confused.
Yeah, if he's technical, he's going to have a salesperson. Yeah, you're going to have him help him out with the sales idea.
What's funny is a technical guy. This is how they think. They think to themselves, well, if I hire a technical person, it takes work off of me, and I can. And the first question I ask him is, well, what would you do if I gave you all your time back? Because the 20 takes 80% of the ticket load off of an MSP, which frees up a ton of time. First question, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the time? No earthly idea. How do you make more money? Well, I'm going to sell something. Have you ever sold anything before? No. Have you been able to sell and grow this way? No. Well, what makes you think this epiphany? And so the first thing they do is they look in the industry and they find somebody that does marketing. And they're selling them this marketing. And the problem is they don't even have a vision to what the finish line looks like. They're always in this circle of, well, I tried marketing for 3 months. It didn't work. Of course it didn't work. You're the wrong person.
Right.
I mean, come on. And so I think when you flatline, two people should know straight out of the box. I've got $1 million company, and I've had that $1 million company for 5 years or more. You're better off to sell and get all the pieces and retain some equity in something. Why? Because your money will grow faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a genius to figure out if you have all the pieces to the engine, it runs. And if you only have a few pieces of the engine, it's going to sit still.
Exactly.
So if you're sitting still, my opinion, if you're 5 million or less, an MSP that's 5 million or less, I would roll up. I would roll up inside the 20. And the reason being, to me, M&A is devil's in details. Where are you going to get the most return for what you're trying to accomplish? Cash at the table and equity. Most of the times, if a PE firm buys you, they give you equity in just your little company, and then they tie an earn out to it. There's a reason for that. Whereas in the 20, you become a member, we roll you up, you get equity in the top of the umbrella. Again, remember in the beginning, I told you we line everything up. We're all both rise together, no matter who sells something, no matter who creates something in the company, all boats rise together. No matter who does great. So it just works. Typical PE, they have an earn out. They have an earn out because on average, 30% of the business is going to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
The PE firm's not going to lose. So that's attrition. Our attrition is less than 5%. Why? We created the box right. The end client, 80% of their interaction is with us anyway. They already know us through the whole thing. So it's just a better mousetrap. Really,
that's clever. Yeah.
And if you can invest in a better mousetrap, it's better to do it now than later.
So the great learnings for me, one is if you have all the pieces of the puzzle, the car moves, right? The engine moves. If you have some of the pieces, but not all, it stays still. It's not like it moves slowly. It just is exactly where it is.
Move. It's literally like if you do no marketing, you have no gas.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's like you've got this company and you're saying to yourself, I'm not going to give you the fuel that it takes. And sometimes it's because they can't afford it. Sometimes it's because they just flat don't know.
Yep.
And so I go back to this thing. We're better together. If you look at a $5 million and less company, MSP out there, we're better together. We'll accomplish more together. We'll have more pieces that it takes to accomplish it. We can compete at parity with all the big guys. We have all the same things they do. And it's at your fingertips. All you have to do is say yes to start going down that path. I mean, there are very few things in life that I say are no-brainers. The 20 is a no-brainer for an MSP, unless they want to be king.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be king, man, that's expensive. Got to wear all the right clothes. You got to hope like hell all the rich people get enough taxes and send it up to you. You know, if you're thinking of a typical kingdom, the king relies on the rich people, not the other way around. The rich people empower that king. So if you don't have the riches, but you have the kingdom, you're just a paper tiger. You're a king in your own mind and nowhere else. And that's why ego is so incredibly expensive.
Interesting point. Yes. They're sort of kind of living in a paradise, which is of their own creation, that they're king of this big thing, but in fact, they're not. I want to switch gears a little bit, Tim. I want to talk about big picture stuff because I think you really can. You have a view about all of this. This is a question that is on so many people's minds. I don't know whether there's the right answer. I want your perspective on it. AI is becoming more and more prominent in the MSP space, I think. In general, it's becoming more and more prominent. What role do you think AI will play in the evolution of MSPs? What are your thoughts about that? I mean, do you think it's a parallel track? Do you think it completely transforms this industry? Where are you on this?
I think it completely transforms the industry. and why? What is AI really? If you really look and you step back and you don't listen to the noise, what is AI really built for? At the base level, when we're talking about our companies, it's to get rid of labor, mundane labor, duplicatable labor. Now, down the road, it's going to do high level stuff. Like, I don't think you'll even have human beings trading on the stock market. It'll all be AI models. I've got a friend of mine that owns a company that's all they do. So in our box, MSPs, low hanging fruit. I think little things it does. I think that we can automate most of our billing, most of our interaction between tools. I think we can automate minimum 50% of the bottom side of our labor. Password resets, user errors, all those things, because they're all duplicated. They're over and over and over and over. So you give that to AI, it starts closing those tickets. It learns, it gets better. It gets better than human beings. High level tickets, I don't know yet. I can't see it like a project. It'll get there. I don't know where AI stops is the problem, which is one reason why I'm glad this gray hair is real. I don't have to worry about it.
That's true. I mean, I am not a big tech savvy guy. I'll be absolutely honest, right? But I already use AI every day in my day-to-day life to do all kinds of little things, which have saved me hours of work already. And it does it in many cases better than I could have done it, even if I had applied myself, which is the scary part. So I agree with you on this. Yeah,
it definitely does it better than me. I mean, if you ever get an email from me, and it's really good grammar,
right?
It automatically tells you I use ChatGPT. if it's got a sentence that can be 914 words, 1 period and 10 commas, that was Tim.
That's awesome. So this is cool, but I know we're making fun of this, but I think this is important because if there are leaders in the industry who use it and immediately are able to reduce the cost of doing their business, it's going to have an impact on pricing. And then those people who don't do it are going to have to be up against it because their costs are going to be non-competitive. So it's important, I think, for people to understand that even at that low level, it's going to have an important impact on people, and it might not be very, very far away.
Yeah, I think any company that is not talking about AI, we have the 20 has 10 or 11 patents, and all of them have somewhat of AI built into it. If it's another thing that small companies can't do, it's hard for a small company to really take AI and apply it. If you look across the board, if you could take all the MSPs and slam them together and create a magic thing that all of them knew that if we work together, that we can go so much further. We're stronger. We could be paid correct. All the different things that go with it. Because you've got MSPs out there that charge nothing, and then you've got some that charge market, and then you got some that charge over market. But all those differences is just a difference in experience and confidence. You got to be confident enough to go to a client and charge what's correct. You get a yes or no. There's always going to be bottom feeders.
Yeah. True.
AI is going to kill one of them, though. Yeah.
Private equity, right? So much interest in the MSP space from private equity. How do you think this trend is going to shape the industry over the, let's say, next 5 to 10 years? Do you think that they continue to roll up and consolidate?
I do. And I love that private equity is. I've been doing IT since 1992 as a company. There has never been a clear path to wealth because it was just a bunch of engineers doing a bunch, and there's over 40,000 in the United States. So the money is so spread out. You've got 5% that really get a huge chunk. I would say that chunk is probably bigger than the lower 90%. But PE has come in and give us a path for everyday IT people to become wealthy. And I think there's maybe 10 years, maybe 15, and this industry will be consolidated. You'll no longer be able to make it. If you're a small guy, you're going to do small, mundane tasks. Those small, mundane tasks are going to be eliminated with AI. That they really are. And so, a lot of people say, well, what are humans going to do when AI does everything? Somebody's got to run the AI. It means that humans have to get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter as well, and continue to create. And there's plenty to do. An AI is not going to make me prosciutto with fried gnocchi when touch. Right? Just not going to. So I think there's tons of things that AI, just because humans won't let it, that it won't touch. And so there's going to be plenty for human beings to do. I mean, it's like the old thing. People that get hung up on tools. They've got their shovel, they're digging their trench, and then a guy comes in and says, well, it's going to take him 3 days to dig that. I'll dig it with my trencher in an hour, and he wants $3,000 for his hourly wages for that time. I just want $1,500.
Right.
That's how technology outruns. And that's
completely disrupts everything.
Well, and if you're caught up, if your ego is, I can do such a better job with this shovel, you're not gonna have a job. You're not gonna have a company. You're not gonna have anything. And I think it's the same place that PE has brought us to this place of, hey, you guys have done an incredible job. You're still highly needed. That's why we'll let you participate in this building of wealth by being able to keep equity. And so where a lot of MSPs are anti-PE firm, I am 100% PE firm because they have revolutionized our industry, especially the financial model.
Giving them a path to making wealth. But in your comments is also this point that there is almost a window, if you will, where the kinds of MSPs that PE firms are buying are still deemed to be value additive and therefore worth buying, right? And that if they're not able to grow and they stay who they are, that eventually that low-level stuff is going to get taken over by technology, in this case AI as an example, and then that valuation is going to start suffering because now they don't have something that is that valuable to offer. So there's definitely a window that they have to be very cognizant of. But now let's put the 20s next to the PE firm, right? Yeah. You've done 35 acquisitions, like we said. They might be, I don't know, but they might be smaller than the typical one that a PE firm does. But the up to 40, 50,000 MSPs that are out there, the vast majority of them, right, are with way less than $5 million in revenue. The vast majority of them.
Yes.
And I feel, I don't know you've said this, but I feel like that is a market that you are focused on in terms of like partnering up with. So when you do this really well and you really scale this up and you've got the right people, I mean, what does your company look like versus the company of a PE firm that has brought that platform and done its consolidations? I feel like you could be an order of magnitude different company from theirs.
Well, so obviously my market's a lot bigger, right? They want somebody that's got $1 million in EBITDA.
Yep.
I want somebody that's got $1 million in top line revenue and up. And how can I do that? Well, you have to strip the risk out. Mm-hmm. That's why you line everything up in the transition and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Why you push attrition of those companies when you buy them to less than 5% of burnout. The mathematics is what makes it work. I can buy half of what they buy and create the same amount of money. The difference is where I may buy 6 to hit 15 million in top line revenue, they buy 1.
Mm-hmm.
They still can't integrate that company. Me, I can buy the 6 and integrate it within 60 days. The multiple for the companies that sub $1 million EBITDA are much lower than. So the distance between those 2 points, where I can buy, example, at a 5, and we're worth a 15, there's a 10x turn in the middle of that.
That multiple expansion is incredible.
They're going to buy at 15. They're going to buy at 15 million. They're going to give 8 to 10x. Well, they've got a 5 multiple between there. You have to ask yourself, if you're the buyer, which one do you want to buy?
Mm-hmm.
If all things are created equal and integration was easier, the 20 model is the only way to go. And have a ready open market. If you look at $15 million companies out there that are MSPs, that's probably far less than 5% of all MSPs.
Mm-hmm.
I would say almost less than probably 2.5%.
Probably.
So who's going to consolidate this $1 million to $5 million MSPs down here?
Yeah,
I will.
To be honest, I'm surprised that. I mean, you're doing it. You're very successful at it, and I know you're successful at it when your competitors tell me that you are.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that there aren't more such the 20s doing this idea. Well, what do you think about that?
You'd have to have a bunch of Tim Conkles that dream the dream.
That's fair enough. Yes.
I mean, think about this. Somebody has to dream the dream first and pave the way.
Yeah.
I think that I've dreamed first, and I think it'll pave the way. Do I think others will come up and try to do it? 100%. Mm-hmm. Because they're foolish not to. Mm-hmm. The problem is I'm so far ahead. Mm-hmm. It takes you 5 years minimum to do this. Mm-hmm. To lay the groundwork, get everything ready, and you don't have the recipe. Mm-hmm. So you have to do everything perfect.
You have to figure all that stuff out. Yep.
And so it's a really killer time to be the 20. Mm-hmm. For an MSP that joins, it's a perfect synergy, perfect timing, perfect everything, perfect place, perfect time. I think the 20 was ahead of its time. Mm-hmm. And all the things, everything matched up. I had traction in the industry. I'm very trusted. Why? Mm-hmm. Because I'm trustworthy. I'm not gonna lie to you. Mm-hmm. No matter what what it costs, I'm not lying. If I make a mistake, I'm going to own it. And so just all the pieces lined up. And that's what the industry itself told Tim Conkle when I first went down this path. There's no way you're going to get MSPs to live all in your tool and all that stuff. You're 100% correct. You will never get them to do it if you don't ask. Another principle I learned from my dad: you only get in life what you ask for.
Right. Very true.
Every question you answer for yourself, like a question of would they do it, and if you answer it yourself, you're self-destroying your own dream. Your dreams only get life if you put them in the ether and you ask somebody else. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Yeah, Tim, I would do that. And a couple hundred MSPs down the road,
Oh my goodness. If you could give one piece of advice to an MSP starting out today, what would it be?
Join the 20. And I don't want that to be self-grandiose. So let me explain why.
Yeah.
Because you get every single thing in a box that you need to be an MSP. If I mean, think of all the things you have against you right now. If you want to start an MSP, it costs a lot of money. I mean, all kinds of things. You can't compete at parity. I mean, there's hundreds of things I could tell you. The 20 levels the playing field for somebody that's small. It just does. It just does. And it gives a path all the way to nirvana. Mm-hmm. If they build it, they know they have a buyer. They know what he's going to buy at, which is going to be better than anything in the industry in this sliver of the market. It's going to be better for them. Long-term wealth creation and all that stuff. So if you really want to build something, join the 20, line everything up, grow, be acquired, and it's going to be a life cycle. Mm-hmm. It's I'm gonna say this. I had a franchisee of one of the major franchisees in the MSP space want to sell to me. So we looked at his franchise agreement and figured out that if you leave the franchise, you don't own anything. So I definitely wouldn't do a franchise.
Right.
The 20, it doesn't do any of that. We're a co-op. Co-op means we all cooperatively work together towards a common goal.
Yeah.
Without taking all your power to be who you are and what you are and express your magic.
Mm-hmm. What is the one quality that you really look for in a founder that they must have?
Culture. I mean, if he's a lone wolf and he's a king and he can't answer the question except, I want to be king. I want to be king. I want to be. I mean, I've got people like that right now that are so wound around the axle of being the king, the guy that makes every choice, that it'll end up costing them millions of dollars in the long run. Remember, being king is expensive because you have to make everybody happy. So easy. This industry's easy now. You just got to make the right decisions.
Mm-hmm. If you had to give up everything and do something else, if you were not doing this, right, you're doing something else, what would that be?
Well, Save the World's already taken, so let me think of something else.
I got another crazy one after this one, so you gotta see it.
So I come from a line of entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
if I wasn't doing this, I would be very successful in a different industry.
Mm-hmm.
Pick the industry and give me time, and I can tell you how to make a lot of money in the industry.
That's a good answer, and I believe it. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Here's another crazy one, right? You wake up tomorrow and you open a letter in the mail from yourself 20 years out in the future. What do you think it's saying to you?
Start sooner. Real. I think it would. So I've got this crazy idea of modern day slavery is working for $1. As long as you have to work for $1, you're a slave to the dollar. I like the idea of your dollars working for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true freedom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wake up every day, decide what you want to do. I would have, if I wrote a letter 20 years in the future back to my young self, I would have talked to that. I would have talked to that probably, because that wasn't really my mantra in the early days. In the early days, it was just, I want to build a company and I want to be rich. There's much more to being rich than money. Money is just a vehicle to make a life that is full better. You got to have friends. You got to have family. You got to have all those things. Because if you had all the money in the world but had none of those, you would be miserable.
Mm-hmm. And we have plenty of those people in our society as well.
Yes, we do. We do. So I think I would have wrote myself of, hey, the money's just a byproduct.
Yeah.
Make everything else great.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you work like I do, I mean, I've given multitudes of my time to this, and it's time that I took away from other places.
Mm-hmm.
I would have probably had a little bit more balance, maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's a great answer, and I think it really applies to so many founders and owners of MSPs as well, who are, who have done this for a long time, and I feel like it's worth them thinking about where do they want to spend their next 5 years, what do they want to get pleasure and happiness out of. If
you get to the finish line and you brought no one with you that you love,
yes,
would you want to get to the finish line?
What's the point?
What's the point? Yeah. So I think the 20 creates work-life balance for the MSP owners that are in the group. It allows them to go on vacations. It allows them not to worry about a lot of things that they worry about now. And I think it frees up time for them to spend with those that they love. And so I think it's a really cool thing. And that's just a byproduct.
Yeah. That's right. Tim Conkle, I knew I was going to have an unbelievable conversation with you, and you absolutely delivered. This was so much fun. I really mean it.
Yeah. I love these things. And I'm humbled that you'd even ask me to come on.
Oh, that is so sweet of you to say. I really appreciate your saying that. I got 50 more questions, but we're out of time, so I cannot keep this up. I'm going to harass you guys another time for another podcast, because there's going to be a wealth of more stuff to come out of you that we haven't yet sucked out. But really, really, really appreciate your spending this time with me.
Thank you.